Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Here we are outside Buckingham Palace, where the Queen lives.
I don't think she's in at the moment, right?
No, she's gone out to Tesco. So, we're reading about the Supreme King and Queen, Sri Radha and Krishna. Get in there. So it's Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 23, The Lord in the Heart.
So say the invocation.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 23. The Transcendentalists are concerned with the spiritual body. As such, by the strength of their devotional service, austerities, mystic power and transcendental knowledge, their movements are unrestricted within and beyond the material worlds. The fruitive workers or the gross materialists can never move in such an unrestricted manner. Purport. The materialistic scientists' endeavour to reach other planets by mechanical vehicles is only a futile attempt. One can, however, reach heavenly planets by virtuous activities, but one can never expect to go beyond Swarga or Jana Loka by such mechanical or materialistic activities, either gross or subtle. The Transcendentalists, who have nothing to do with the gross material body, can move anywhere within or beyond the material worlds. Within the material worlds, they move in the planetary systems of the Maha, Janas, Tapas and Satya Loka. And beyond the material worlds, they can move in the Vaikunthas as unrestricted spacemen. Narada Muni is one of the examples of such spacemen, and Durvas Muni is one of such mystics. By the strength of devotional service, austerities, mystic powers and transcendental knowledge, everyone can move like Narada Muni or Durvas Muni. It is said that Durvas Muni travelled throughout the entirety of material space and part of spiritual space within 1 year only. The speed of the Transcendentalists can never be attained by the gross or subtle materialists.
Text 24. O King, when such a mystic passes over the Milky Way by the illuminating Sushumna to reach the highest planet, Brahmaloka, he goes first to Vaishvanara, the planet of the deity of fire, wherein he becomes completely cleansed of all contaminations, and thereafter he still goes higher to the circle of Shishumar, to relate with Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Okay, so a lot of interesting words we're going to hear about now in the purport. The polar star of the universe and the circle thereof is called Shishumar's circle, and therein the local residential planet of the personality of Godhead, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, is situated. Before reaching there, the mystic passes over the Milky Way to reach Brahmaloka, and while going there, he first reaches Vaishvanara Loka, where the demigod controls fire. On Vaishvanara Loka, the yogi becomes completely cleansed of all dirty sins acquired while in contact with the material world. The Milky Way in the sky is indicated herein as the way leading to Brahmaloka, the highest planet of the universe.
Text 25. This Sisumara is the pivot for the turning of the complete universe, and it is called the navel of Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. The yogi alone goes beyond this circle or Sisumara and attains the planet Mahaloka, where purified saints like Bhrigu enjoy a duration of life of 4,320,000,000 solar years. This planet is worshipable even for the saints who are transcendentally situated. Text 26. At the time of the final devastation of the complete universe, the end of the duration of Brahma's life, a flame of fire emanates from the mouth of Ananta from the bottom of the universe. The yogi sees all the planets of the universe burning to ashes, and thus he leaves for Satyaloka by airplanes used by the great purified souls. The duration of life in Satyaloka is calculated to be 311 trillion and 40 billion years. It's a long time. Yours is different, but it's a long time. It's a long time. Purport. It is indicated herein that the residents of Mahaloka, where the purified living entities or demigods possess a duration of life calculated to be 4,320,000,000 solar years, have airships by which they reach Satyaloka, the topmost planet of the universe. In other words, the Srimad Bhagavatam gives us many clues about other planets far, far away from us, which modern planes and spacecraft cannot reach, even by imaginary speeds. The statements of Srimad Bhagavatam are accepted by great acharyas like Sridhar Swami, Ramanujacharya and Vallabh Acharya. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically accepts Srimad Bhagavatam as a spotless Vedic authority, and as such, no sane man can ignore the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam when it is spoken by the self-realized soul Srila Sukadeva Goswami, who follows in the footsteps of his great father, Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of all Vedic literatures. In the creation of the Lord, there are many wonderful things we can see with our own eyes every day and night, but we are unable to reach them equipped by modern materialistic science. We should not therefore depend on the fragmentary authority of materialistic science for knowing things beyond the range of scientific purview. For a common man, both modern science and Vedic wisdom are simply to be accepted because none of the statements either of modern science or of Vedic literature can be verified by him. The alternative for a common man is to believe either of them or both of them. The Vedic way of understanding, however, is more authentic because it has been accepted by the acharyas, who are not only faithful and learned men, but are also liberated souls without any of the flaws of conditioned souls. The modern scientists, however, are conditioned souls liable to so many errors and mistakes. Therefore, the safe side is to accept the authentic version of Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, which is accepted unanimously by the great acharyas.
Text 27. Translation. In the planet of Satyaloka there is neither bereavement, nor old age, nor death. There is no pain of any kind, and therefore there are no anxieties, save that sometimes, due to consciousness, there is a feeling of compassion for those unaware of the process of devotional service, who are subjected to unsurpassable miseries in the material world. Purport. Foolish men of materialistic temperament do not take advantage of successive authorized knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is authorized and is acquired not by experiment, but by authentic statements of the Vedic literatures, explained by bona fide authorities. Simply by becoming an academic scholar, one cannot understand the Vedic statements. One has to approach the real authority who has received the Vedic knowledge by disciplic succession, as clearly explained in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2. Lord Krishna affirmed that the system of knowledge as explained in the Bhagavad Gita was explained to the sun god, and the knowledge descended by disciplic succession from the sun god to his son Manu, and from Manu to King Ikshwaku, the forefather of Lord Ramachandra. And thus, the system of knowledge was explained down the line of great sages, one after another. But in due course of time, the authorized succession was broken, and therefore, just to re-establish the true spirit of knowledge, the Lord again explained the same knowledge to Arjuna, who was a bona fide candidate for understanding due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita, as it was understood by Arjuna, Bhagavad Gita, as it was understood by Arjuna, is explained. 10:12 through 13. But there are many foolish men who do not follow in the footsteps of Arjuna in understanding the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. They create instead their own interpretations, which are as foolish as they themselves, and thereby only help to put a stumbling block on the path of real understanding, misdirecting the innocent followers who are less intelligent, or the Sudras. It is said that one should become a Brahmana before one can understand the Vedic statements, and this stricture is as important as the stricture that no one shall become a lawyer who has not qualified himself as a graduate. Such a stricture is not an impediment on the path of progress for anyone and everyone, but it is necessary for an unqualified understanding of a particular science. Basically, it means if you want to understand the Vedic literatures, you have to come to the Brahminical platform, just like a lawyer who wants to practice as a lawyer has to graduate from law school, kind of thing. Vedic knowledge is misinterpreted by those who are not qualified Brahmins. A qualified Brahmin is one who has undergone strict training under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So that's the qualification of a Brahmin. He's undergone strict training with a bona fide spiritual master.
The Vedic wisdom guides us to understanding our relation with the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and to acting accordingly in order to achieve the desired result of returning home back to Godhead. But materialistic men do not understand this. They want to make a plan to become happy in a place where there is no happiness. For false happiness, they try to reach other planets, either by Vedic rituals or by spacecraft. But they should know for certain that any amount of materialistic adjustment for becoming happy in a place which is meant for distress, that's interesting, cannot benefit the misguided man, because after all, the whole universe with all its paraphernalia will come to an end after a certain period. Then all plans of materialistic happiness will automatically come to an end. The intelligent person therefore makes a plan to return home back to Godhead. Such an intelligent person surpasses all the pangs of material existence, like birth, death, disease, and old age. He is actually happy because he has no anxieties of material existence. But as a compassionate sympathizer, he feels unhappiness for the suffering materialistic men, and thus he occasionally comes before the materialistic men to teach them the necessity of going back to Godhead. All the bona fide acharyas preach this truth of returning home back to Godhead and warn men not to make a false plan for happiness in a place where happiness is only a myth.
Wow, that is such a powerful statement.
Yeah.
Such a powerful statement. I really love that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Very nice.
So, we're busy building so many things, acquiring so many things, trying to keep so many things. But even if you manage to keep it throughout this life, it's not going to last, because eventually the entire thing is going to have to get wrapped up. It's going to come to some level of destruction. All things come to pass. So this perpetual idea of trying to build and create something for one's own personal happiness and satisfaction in this world it's just a myth. It's not going to happen.
It's futile.
Yeah, it is futile. Interesting. Very nice. After reaching Satyaloka, the devotee is specifically able to be incorporated fearlessly by the subtle body. Okay. Fearlessly by the subtle body in an identity similar to that of the gross body, and one after another he gradually attains stages of existence from earthly to watery, fiery, glowing, and airy until he reaches the ethereal stage. Interesting point. So we were just talking about this a little bit the other day, how in the heavenly planets, especially, Satyaloka, that's the place of Lord Brahma, how Lord Brahma is considered to be made of predominantly intelligence, so the bodies are more ethereal and therefore less gross, and that's why it can last for much longer, because it's not bound by the same laws that break down matter. Ether, continues to go on with less destruction than the gross material energy. Anyway, it's an interesting point. Anyone who can reach Brahma Loka or Satya Loka by dint of spiritual perfection and practice is qualified to attain 3 different types of perfection. One who has attained a specific planet by dint of pious activities attains places in terms of his comparative pious activities. So depending on your piety, you get rewarded in a certain way. One who has attained the place by dint of Virat or Hiranyagarbha worship is liberated along with the liberation of Brahma. Okay. So if you get there by dint of your pious activities, then you get a certain level of body according to the piety. If you get there because you worship Hiranyagarbha or Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, then you get liberated along with Lord Brahma at the end of the, I guess, a day of Lord Brahma. But one who attains the place by dint of devotional service is specifically mentioned here in relation to how he can penetrate into the different coverings of the universe and thus ultimately disclose his spiritual identity in the absolute atmosphere of supreme existence.
Is it the gods?
I think it must be some royals or someone. Maybe.
Oh, I missed it. I think the Queen's gone out again.
Evidently she's not here because the flag you said is the Union Jack.
Yeah, she's in Sandringham.
Yeah, so anyway, something's going on. Sorry, we're distracting from Bhagavatam, which is more important than any of this stuff. Go ahead.
According to Srila Jiva Goswami, all the universes are clustered together up and down, and each and every one of them is separately 7-fold covered. The watery portion is beyond the 7-fold coverings, and each covering is 10 times more expansive than the previous covering. The personality of Godhead, who creates all such universes by his breathing period, lies above the cluster of the universes. The water of the causal ocean is differently situated than the covering water of the universe. The water that serves as covering for the universe is material, whereas the water of the causal ocean is spiritual. As such, the watery covering mentioned herein is considered to be the false egoistic covering of all living entities, and the gradual process of liberation from material coverings one after another, as mentioned herein, is the gradual process of being liberated from false egoistic conceptions of the material gross body, and then being absorbed in the identification of the subtle body till the attainment of the pure spiritual body in the absolute realm of the kingdom of God.
Okay. What did you get out of that? Anything?
Yeah, there's layers covering this material universe. Sorry, I'm just kidding. There's layers covering the material universe, and it seems the false ego is the most
dense,
stubborn.
That's for sure. Srila Sridhar Swami confirms that a part of the material nature, after being initiated by the Lord, is known as the Mahatattva. A fractional portion of the Mahatattva is called the false ego. A portion of the ego is the vibration of sound, and a portion of sound is atmospheric air. A portion of the airy atmosphere is turned into forms, and the forms constitute the power of electricity or heat. Heat produces the smell of the aroma of the earth, and the gross earth is produced by such aroma. And all these combined together constitute the cosmic phenomenon. The extent of the cosmic phenomenon is calculated to be diametrically, both ways, 4 billion miles. Then the coverings of the universe begin. The first stratum of the covering is calculated to extend 80 million miles, and the subsequent coverings of the universe are respectively of fire, effulgence, air, and ether, one after another, each extending 10 times further than the previous. The fearless devotee of the Lord penetrates each one of them and ultimately reaches the absolute atmosphere where everything is of one and the same spiritual identity. Then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets, where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord and engages in the loving transcendental service of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of devotional life. Beyond this, there is nothing to be desired or achieved by the perfect yogi. Okay, that's all very intense. I mean, that purport is a really amazing explanation of the construct of the universe. The last part of the purport really describes the creational aspect and how it starts with the Lord's glance, the Mahatattva, the false ego, then the vibration of sound, which relates to the Bible. I was just reading something the other day where in the Bible, I was reading about creation, and it mentions how in the beginning there was God. Oh, how's it go? And then there was sound, and in that sound there was the name of God, something like that. So it's interesting that often these things often relate. But yeah, the links and the how big it is, it's really hard to fathom and imagine, and then also this point that the devotee penetrates all of them, and wherever we read, there are parrots,
green parrots,
green parrots, always from Vrindavan parrots. You can hear them in the background slightly. And that the Lord penetrates all of them and reaches the atmosphere where everything is of one and the same spiritual identity. So I presume that's the Brahmaloka, right? Or not Brahmaloka, but the Brahman effulgence, the Brahmajyoti. And then it says, then the devotee enters one of the Vaikuntha planets, where he assumes exactly the same form as the Lord and engages in transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the highest perfection of devotional life. Of course, Vaikuntha Loka and achieving the same form of the Lord, of course, that is the highest level of spiritual perfection. But we would understand that going to the planet of Krishna Loka, Krishna Loka is the highest, and we don't necessarily get a form the same as the Lord's, but we become an eternal servant of the Lord. Can you hear those parrots? It's amazing. Yeah. All right. So we'll read one more.
Text 29. The devotee thus surpasses the subtle objects of different senses, like aroma by smelling, the palate by tasting, vision by seeing forms, touch by contacting the vibrations of the ear, by ethereal identification, and the sense organs by material activities. Beyond the sky, there are subtle coverings resembling the elementary coverings of the universe. The gross coverings are a development of partial ingredients of the subtle causes. So the yogi or devotee, along with liquidation of the gross elements, relinquishes the subtle causes like aroma by smelling. The pure spiritual spark, the living entity, thus becomes completely cleansed of all material contamination to become eligible for entrance into the kingdom of God.
Okay, what did you get from that?
What did you get from it?
I didn't get much, that's why I'm asking you. I mean, I got a lot. It's like, these things are very technical. I always feel like these kind of verses require really sitting with them and going through them and putting them in relation to the previous ones and looking at it. And for me, I want to draw like diagrams and a table and like that, so I can really understand it. But I guess the main thing is the pure spiritual spark, the living entity, thus becomes completely cleansed of all material contamination. So it means that all these material elements and the way that we experience the material elements through the material senses, they all have to be broken down and kind of eradicated down to the purest essence, which is the spirit soul. Then, at that point, we can enter into the kingdom of God.
That's what I got.
That's what I thought. Great minds think alike, right? Let's see. Next one's pretty long purport, so I think we'll stop here if you're okay with that.
Yes.
Alrighty. So we'll pick up next time with text 230. Thank you all very much, and
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.